What's up guys, my name is Zero Heroes and welcome back to more Gatesville. And yes, finally it is good to be back after my PC broke for a while, and I did put in the community chat about being back, so thank you all of you for your patience and support. I know it's been a wee bit time of just waiting, but thank you again for appreciate all just the waiting and support. And I know it's annoying, but thank you. But today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Now, I will be continuing on with the Conquest campaign, and I will be talking about that in another video, but today I am going up with the British against the Americans. Now, no, they're not going up in a fight against each other. I wish I was that good at editing, using the editor, but I'm not that good. But today I want to talk about the lack of how the British tanks are just kind of taking over by the Americans. And what I mean by that is that I have put myself as a British faction and put myself as a late war kind of section, and with that I've chosen within the kind of random selection here all of the tanks that are in with this area, and I want to make a point of how I think the British faction are lacking tanks over the Americans. Now, if you do count it, yes, there is more British tanks than there is more Americans. I believe there is 9 British tanks over the 7 American tanks. And yes, the reason I've put 2 kind of British tanks on the American side, but that is because it is kind of the exact kind of chassis and hull of the kind of American copy, which is why I've put them down here, which I'll talk about in a sec. But as you know, I've talked about a previous video about the American tanks being weak, and a lot of you agreed with me. So today I'm going to be talking about the British tanks and how I think Gates of Hell should be adding more British tanks into the game, or they should have put more in instead of kind of putting a copies of American tanks into the mix of the faction. Now, yes, I do know historically British faction did have American tanks such as the Sherman Firefly and the Achilles. Yes, I do know that, but I think just for a wee bit more kind of realistic on my opinion, I feel like there should be a lot more British tanks than kind of, now I do like the equal side of it, you try and balance it, but I'm a wee bit biased and British, and if you're not British then you don't get it. But I think being British / Scottish, I think there definitely needs to be more vehicles. I mean, this is just the line that you get up with the kind of normal units that you get. So you get 3 Churchills, you get kind of 1 small kind of light tank, you get, I believe, 1, 2, 3, you get 3 Cromwells, you get 1 Valentine, and you get 1 Comet, which I still think is a very good varied selection. But I think there could have been, I believe there was more varied options of Valentines, which you can, I believe, get in the special doctrines. But I feel like they could have added more into kind of the regular units with the Valentine, and I wish they added more versions of the Comet. I believe there was earlier versions of the Comet. I believe this is the Comet 1, which looked like more like the later model, which is, as you know, late war. But I believe there is a earlier model which might be in the early and medium section of the game, in the British faction. But I'm specifically talking about the late war stage, where I just feel like they could have added more selection to this, and I'm just biased just because I'm British. And if you don't find that okay, then that's fine, you can comment down below. But I mean, if you look at the Americans here, they have their Stuart, you have the Sherman VC, which is basically the British stole. They slapped a 17-pounder on it, which is the same, as well as the Achilles here, which is basically, again, they just slapped a 17-pounder on with the kind of Wolverine, hull and sash and hull and kind of turret, which I just think is very accurate and true. But I just think it wasn't really needed. But the only one I really do actually approve of is this thing, the Sherman Crab. I think this is awesome. I mean, it's probably one of the best looking kind of Shermans in the game, just how realistic in the way that the chains go. But they also got a Stuart 6. Again, it just feel like it's not needed in the British faction. It's just kind of uncalled for. If I was only putting the only two vehicles I would put in the Americans would be the Sherman VC and the Achilles, and that's it, because they were purely kind of turned more British with their 17 pounders that they did put on. But other than that, all these kind of American other proper vehicles from American faction should have stayed with the American faction. The fact that they've kind of come over to the British faction, I thought, is just maybe a wee bit lazy from the game developers, and just deciding not adding more British kind of vehicles. Which again, if you look at it, there's only 9 vehicles. I think they could have definitely added more, but I know they will add more as the game, you know, develops more updates. They'll add more British units, but I just feel like this is quite lacklustering, and I feel like this is going to get a lot of opinions, which I hope it does. But you know, I just feel like that this is just not enough. You know, this is very lacklustering, and I want to make my point clear enough that the Americans, as they typically do, are always kind of overconfident. You know, they always like to show off, and they've kind of come in with kind of taking over with the British faction, which I don't really like, in my personal opinion. But a lot of you might like it because it is a good mixture, but you don't really see any British vehicles in the American faction, maybe except 1 or 2 vehicles. I think the only other British faction I can actually think of is the Churchill 3, but that is with the Soviets, which I don't actually mind. I believe they also have a Valentine Russian variant as well, so that is okay. But I don't actually remember having any American, you know, tanks in the British section. So that any British units in the American section. Sorry, that's what I meant. So my opinion is very kind of split, but I'm kind of very... this is me being biased, and I think that there wasn't enough British tanks put in the late war section. I think 9 of the vehicles is a good start, but I think possibly even getting rid of most of these American vehicles and putting in more kind of variants of maybe Valentines or Comets would have made it more slightly realistic, in my opinion. But again, it's just saying that I've won. But on that is kind of my coming to my conclusion that I feel like my game crashed. Excellent. So apparently I capped one of the cap circles. I completely forgot to turn it off. But coming to more of my conclusion and what I actually think, that overall that there should be more British units from the start in that British faction, and I think they should have got rid of the American kind of units, as I just felt they were taking over a bit. But there you go, guys, that is kind of my opinion on how I felt on it. Let me know in the comments down below how you feel about American units being in the British faction, and how they almost add up to the same amount of kind of tanks as the British, because it's only by 2 tanks that the Americans have, that the British have got more. But on that is it, and I'm kind of a wee bit triggered by that. But on that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and if you have liked it, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and thank you so much for watching, and always support, and I will see you in the next video. See you later, and goodbye.